Say hi to YouTube.
Or run away. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel.
Oh, hi Dakota. You want to be in the video?
Alright, well this is a video about you, so of course you're welcome. So basically, we've been taking care of Dakota now for the last 5 months. We brought her home in December and she has quickly become an important member of our family. But by no means has this puppy journey been easy. Dakota is now a 7-month-old Eurasier puppy, and while she is tons of fun and a real fluff ball of love, things can be challenging sometimes.
Hey baby. Oh, aren't you the cutest?
I mean, who could not love this little puppy? But I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about everything that we've learned taking care of our little puppy for the last 5 months and offer some advice along the way. And now she's gone, but I'm sure she'll be back. Hopefully by listening to some of this advice, those of you who are thinking of adopting a puppy will get the idea of what it's like to take care of them during those crucial first few months of life. And those of you who are just here to see the adorable Eurasier puppy we already have, you're more than welcome to listen to how our experience with her has been over the past couple of months.
Welcome.
Now, I think the first thing that we had to learn when we took Dakota home was that patience is key. Puppies can be a real handful, especially the first couple of months. They're not always going to be listening to you. They're going to want to be very playful. They're not potty trained in the beginning. And they sure have a mind of their own, whether it be running around playing with all the things they're not supposed to. In the case of Dakota, she's always getting into our socks. She'll sometimes dig holes in the backyard, but you have to understand that they're still puppies and they're still learning. So it's important to have a lot of patience with them and not get too angry with them when they're still very young. Most advice that we've learned is that you're not supposed to really get strict with them until they're around the 6-month-old mark. Before they're 6 months old, they're still considered babies, so anything that you're teaching them isn't necessarily going to stick a lot, specifically when it comes to being harsh with them or really negative towards them. So a good advice is, for example, when you're potty training them, if they're below the age of 6 months old and they have an accident inside, you shouldn't really scold them or yell at them for that. You should really just show them corrective actions, and that will help them learn where they're actually supposed to go instead of inside the house. But if you're angry towards them, that's not really going to register in a puppy's mind that they did something wrong and you're angry at that. They're just going to register the negative emotions that you're projecting onto them, and they're not going to understand why. So that is why I think having patience with little puppies is key. And then around the 6-month mark, which is where we're at right now, you can start getting a little more strict about things. So for example, now if we're calling to Dakota and she doesn't come to us, when she was younger, we would just brush it off, but now we'll actually go to her and say, no, you're supposed to come when you're called, and we're being more enforcing with the rules and more enforcing with the tricks that we're teaching her. The second most important thing that we've learned is that socialization is key, and boy, is there a lot of things you need to socialize a new puppy to. The list can really go on and on, but some of the most important things are to socialize them to all different types of people and with other dogs. So when it comes to people, when Dakota was very young, we would constantly be having different guests come and visit the house to meet her. We would have our parents come who were older, we would have our nieces and nephews come, so toddlers, infants, children who are of medium size. We would also invite some of our friends over for larger gatherings, smaller gatherings, just so that Dakota was able to see people of all ages, all genders, all ethnicities in her home and not be scared of them. It also helps that we live on a rather busy street, so anytime Dakota is in the backyard, she's constantly seeing people walk by. Old people, young people, basically the entire demographic of Norway is outside our door. Living on a busy street like this has also made it so that she gets very used to things like bicycles, cars, scooters. She also sees some people with skateboards and also prams. It was kind of interesting that prams are strollers with babies in them. She was rather scared of at first. Really, anything that is large and foreign to a puppy is going to be scary the first time. So it's really important that they are exposed to these things, but at their own pace. If they're acting really scared or frightened, you shouldn't try to force them to be exposed to these new things. You should listen to your puppy and go at their comfort level. But it's still important to show them all these new things so that they're not scared of them when they become an adult. Apart from socializing her with people, we also socialized her with a lot of different types of public transportation in the first few months of her life. We started out rather slow. We would take her on walks to the train station and go up on the platform and just sit there. This was a mix of socializing her with a bunch of different people in busy, crowded areas, but also getting her to be able to see what trains look like, what they sound like, what a train station or a public transportation station looks like, and that really helped her. After doing this for some months, we eventually put her on a train. It wasn't moving or anything, but it was just to get her used to what it's like to be inside this kind of a vehicle. We also made sure to take her on regular car rides, so she would be used to driving around with us especially since we want to take her on longer road trips in the future. Another important thing that we thought we needed to socialize her to was sleeping over at other people's houses. As part of taking her on our car rides, we would take her to family members' houses where we would spend the day. We've even spent the night at my partner's parents' house so that she can experience what it's like to have a sleepover. And I think this has been a very important thing for her so that she can become comfortable in other people's homes as well. We're not expecting to live in this apartment forever, so when we move, we want Dakota to feel comfortable with moving to wherever we go. And also when she's being babysat at either sitters' houses or by family members at their homes, it's important that she's able to feel at home in a place that isn't just this apartment. And of course, very important is socializing Dakota with other dogs. So we've done this with a couple different ways too. We're very lucky that we live in a very busy area of the city. So whenever we take her on walks, there's constantly other people walking dogs outside. So every time we take Dakota out on a walk, she is always meeting another puppy, another dog, someone that she can sniff and just have a little bit of an interaction with. Apart from that, there's also a couple friends that we know who also have dogs, and we like to socialize her with those dogs on a more one-on-one setting. So we will take Dakota to the dog park with our friends who have a dog around her size, and they love to run around and play and get into trouble together. I think it's really important to not only have these brief interactions of meeting dogs on the street, but also to have this one-on-one playtime with other dogs. But it's important that you know that the dog your puppy is playing with is safe and is going to behave well with them. For example, I want to take Dakota to a dog park full of a bunch of different dogs that were all strangers to me because I don't feel comfortable yet. She's still very young and an incident could happen with stranger dogs. So it's important that you're always being aware of who your puppy is socializing with. Thirdly, playtime is key. The thing that I kind of struggle with a lot is how much attention puppies need, especially during these first few months of their brain development. A lot of people might think, oh, I can get a very low energy dog and they'll just sleep all day and that's fine. And while Dakota did definitely sleep a lot when she was little, she stopped doing that a couple months in and started needing a lot of attention and a lot of playtime. I'm not the most high energy person, so this was an adjustment to me. I really like taking Dakota on walks, but when it comes to playtime, that is maybe a bit more of my weak zone. See, she even wants to play right now. So puppies are very playful, as you can see, and it's a really important part of their brain development that you interact with them and have these kind of bonding experiences with the toys. Playtime is more important than training as well, because while training is good for their brain and it helps teach them restraint and memory retention, it's not as bonding or fun as playtime. You didn't catch it. Also, something that we learned when we got Dakota is that some games you actually need to teach puppies, and it's not really an instinct. So for example, fetch. Fetch is considered a trick and not just a playtime thing because it's not the dog's natural instinct to bring the ball back to you. So you actually have to train them to do so with treats. But something like tug of war, what we're doing right now that is very natural to the puppy. But I think my point is that you should just be prepared to dedicate a lot of your attention to the puppy the first year of its life. And of course, going forward as well, because a dog is really a lifetime investment and you want to make sure they're living their best life and are always happy and having fun. Isn't that right, Dakota? Are you having fun? Yes, you are. Another thing that we learned after getting Dakota is that nutrition is really important, especially with puppies because their digestive systems are very sensitive. When you first get your puppy, you're going to want to restrict the different types of treats and different types of kibble you're giving them and really stick to one main source of food. This is because by switching up the puppy's dietary intake, it can result in them having diarrhea or just having really upset stomach all of the time. So when we got Dakota, we did our research and we made sure to get a very high quality kibble with low amounts of grain and low amounts of chicken. This was recommended to us because apparently a lot of dogs can be allergic to chicken. So when you're having a puppy, you should just try to stick to things that don't contain that or grains and stick to things that contain stuff like pork or beef or lamb, those kind of proteins instead. That's exactly what we did. And of course, you're welcome to switch out the type of kibble that your puppy is eating, but it's important to do it little by little. So rather than just cut them off cold turkey from the old one and introduce a new food source, you want to slowly blend the two and slowly reduce the old kibble until you have the new one to not upset your puppy's stomach too much. This also applies to treats. Treats are wonderful, but should never be more than I think like 10 to 15% of your puppy's daily diet. And it's really great to use when you're doing training or just when you think she deserves a little treat. But it's important to not mix and match a lot of different treats with a lot lot of different types of proteins and foods in there because that can also upset your puppy's stomach, even if it is only a 10 to 15% of their diet. Another thing that was really a struggle for us in the beginning was the alone time training. It's still a bit of a struggle, especially with the Eurasier breed, because Eurasier breeds are prone to separation anxiety. And we've really noticed this with Dakota. I think the main game changer for us though was when we got a camera. Before, when we would leave her, we never really knew how she was doing when she was alone. We were scared to leave for more than 10 minutes at a time. And anytime we would come back, we would always hear whining and crying and just assume that she'd been doing that the entire time. But after getting the camera, it was a great peace of mind because we would always be able to check in on her and even listen to how she's doing. And we discovered that she's not actually whining the entire time. She's really just lying down by the door waiting for us to come back, which isn't good either. Ideally, she should just be living her life as if we're in the house already. But it is better than learning that she's constantly crying or destroying the house, because that's something that dogs can do as a form of release from all of the anxiety they're feeling from being left alone. So getting a camera to check in on her when she's being left alone was a game changer, but it was still very difficult to do so, and we still utilize babysitters when we're going to work to minimize the amount of time that Dakota is actually left alone. A good rule of thumb for puppies is that every month old they are, that is equal to 1 hour of alone time. So when Dakota is 6 months old, she can, in theory, be left alone for 6 hours. This is, of course, just a general rule of thumb, and this isn't going to apply to every single puppy. For Dakota, for example, I would never feel comfortable leaving her alone for 6 hours, even though she's already 7 months old. And this is just because we kind of came late to the alone time training game. There's also a lot more tricks that go into leaving a puppy alone. For ours, for example, it's important that you don't give them free roam of the entire house, because the more space they have, the more room they have to pace around and look around for you, and it can really cause more anxiety for the dog. It's also ideal if you have a doggy door so the dog can go out and use the bathroom. We unfortunately do not have that, so the amount of time we leave Dakota alone is really restricted by how long she can hold it until we're back so we can take her out again. Another really good piece of advice for alone time training is that before you leave, you really want to tire your dog out. So this can be by doing a big playtime session. It can be by going on a long walk before you leave for the day, something like that. Also, it's important that when you do leave, you do not make a big deal about it. If anything, you kind of want to sneak out when the dog is distracted, and then ideally they won't even notice that you're gone. So these are the main pieces of advice that we have learned with the alone time training for Dakota. And now we've reached my last piece of advice, which is to enjoy your journey with your puppy. A puppy is not just something you have for a couple months, it is a lifetime investment and a member of the family. I cannot express how much love and joy Dakota has brought into our lives in just the couple months that we've had her.
Oh, hello. Did you hear me talking about you?
It's just the best thing in the world when you get to come home to an animal that just feels this intense love and affection for you no matter what. It really is unconditional love in the best way. I've always wanted a dog, and I'm very happy that we finally were able to adopt Dakota. She has made such a big difference in our life in just a couple of months, and I can't wait to have her in our lives and as a part of our family forever. But thanks again so much for watching. I hope some of this advice was helpful and you learned a little something about caring for puppies and Eurasier puppies specifically. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and comment down below what you learned from this, or if you have other advice for taking care of puppies. And I can't wait to see you all in next week's video.
I gotta say bye. Bye.
Bye guys!